Kim Schmidt, Congressman, we're sending billions of dollars overseas to some of those terrorist nations where we buy oil. China is holding a huge amount of our national debt. What do we need to do to get control of our economy and energy?
I'll repeat it again.
You make the TV happy.
Yeah, not nearly as happy as you do, sir. And you make my boss happy. So anyway, he asked a little bit about what we're going to do to get control of our spending and debt. He mentioned China, and he mentioned sending money out to the Middle Eastern countries. So,
yeah, let me draw that into three different pieces for a second, because it's a very important question. I am deeply committed to an American energy policy. And one of the things I guarantee you if I'm the nominee is you'll see a commercial next year in the general election that shows President Obama in Brazil saying to the Brazilians, I'm really glad you're drilling offshore. And I'm really glad we could have $2 billion in loan guarantees so you could buy equipment to drill offshore, by the way, for a George Soros company. And then he went on to say the most extraordinary thing. I hope we can be your best customer. And I don't think he gets it. We don't hire a president to be a purchasing agent for foreign countries. We hire a president to be a salesman for American products. I mean, if he'd said, I hope you'll be our best customer, that would have made some sense. So first of all, the Obama model, which is to borrow from the Chinese in order to pay the Brazilians. You know, there's no 16-year-old in the state who would think that's a sustainable model. I mean, you have to go to Harvard in order to have this kind of sophisticated appreciation of the world. Second, his policies in the Gulf, in Mexico, have cut production by 20% from where they were projected to be. So that one estimate is, you know, they're releasing some oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The estimate is they stopped 4.5 times as much production as they're releasing. The lawsuits and the regulations and the red tape and the EPA off Alaska, not the wilderness area, in an area that is already certified for oil that has 20 billion barrels called the Chukchi Sea. Shell just gave up $3 billion in investment because they got so frustrated they decided it was hopeless. That's 20, you know, he's releasing 30 million barrels. There are 20 billion barrels just off Alaska that we could be getting. The Bakken Shale in formation in North Dakota is producing oil and gas, has reduced, by the way, this is a hint for the future, has reduced North Dakota unemployment to 3.5%. But EPA is not approving the pipelines we need to move oil and gas from the new formations to where it needs to be. So once again, we're being strangled by an anti-American energy administration. So I just give you those as examples. I am for drilling. I'm for oil. I'm for gas. I'm for the use of coal, where we have the largest supply on the planet. We have more energy in coal than Saudi Arabia has in oil. I am for the use of wind power. I just flew in over a whole bunch of, I think 14% of the electricity in Iowa now comes from wind. And apparently, unlike Cape Cod, the farmers here don't seem to mind being paid to have a wind production on their properties. I am for nuclear where it's appropriate, and I think the next generation nuclear power plants are going to be smaller and simpler and safer and more stable than the ones you see in Japan. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I'm also for ethanol, and I'm for biological fuels. And I'm for biological fuels for a practical reason. If my choice is to have $5 billion go to Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, or have the same $5 billion go to Illinois, Iowa, and South Dakota, just as a common sense practical matter, why wouldn't you prefer to have the money here producing fuel rather than there? Now, I think you're going to see the tax subsidy is going to go away, but I'm told by the experts in the industry that if you have flex fuel cars and if you have flex pumps, and people are allowed to make a choice as customers, that when oil gets above a certain price, the fact is ethanol is very competitive. And so I think I first voted for gasohol, as it was then called, in 1984, and Reagan signed it. And so this goes back a long way. It was a deliberate effort to find new sources of fuel to get us off of Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq and places like that. So, but I'm for an all-of-the-above strategy. Don't pick winners and losers. Encourage the development of every kind of American energy. The last piece is simple. If our economy grows and we balance our budget, we pay off our debt to the Chinese. If our economy doesn't grow and we don't balance our budget, the Chinese will basically control this country by control of our debt. That's why I think 2012 is the most important election since 1860 in defining our future as a country.
I'm going to bring up William Owen.